Hello and welcome. Welcome back to another segment or another episode of Retake. I'm your host, Alex Shinkari-Erdeber, as it says right there. I am joined this week by Owen Kruger, off to my right there. He's a little Pikachu for you guys today. Owen, say hi.
Hey, that's me.
And to my below is Christian Saxby Gillespie. Christian, why don't you say hello?
Hello, everybody.
So, as per usual, we are going to be talking about some LCS, EU, and NA, and also going to be talking about some news. And later, we're going to be discussing the new 6.12 patch. It's a rather small one, nothing too huge, but let's dive right into it. The first thing on our news item today is just the 6.12 patch. Not a lot of stuff is happening. We did have a couple substitutions for some games, Fabi replaced Piglet and for TL, and you know Expect had a couple good games, but that was mostly it. No huge roster changes or drama or anything so far. 6.12 saw some changes to Corki, Fizz, and Syndra, and a small buff to Xin Shao. Multiple AD items got a flat AD increase. Fervor of Battle and Grasp of the Undying got nerfs. Double-Edged Sword got a little bit of changes. Veteran Scars and Natural Talent Masteries got some buffs. So with that, we are going to move right into the LCS for this week. We are now talking about our best of threes and best of twos. So we're going to talk about our favorite matches from this week. And I really liked Apex versus Phoenix 1, because even though Phoenix 1 is a very low-tier team, they still held their own against Apex fairly well. They went a little back and forth there. But, you know, as our standings, as we take a look at the standings, TSM sits in first place at 6-0. Immortals and Envious are tied for second place at 5-1. Cloud9 is in the third place with 4-2, and Team Liquid is in fourth place with 3-3. So we're going to go over to our guests. We're going to talk about our favorite matches. Owen, why don't you go ahead and tell me about your favorite NA series from this week?
I really enjoyed Immortals versus MVUS. LOD was 6-slotted. Well, everyone was 6-slotted at this point, but it was this 55-minute team fight, destruction all over the map. Some of the closest macro play from both teams. It was the craziest thing. It was like a fencing match of mechs, and each player was a limb, and they're just going at it. And every time one team would take something, the other team would take the same amount back. And it was this great, ultra-long, team fight-heavy game. And then Envy threw it by suiciding, trying to kill the Nexus, and lost 2-0 to Immortals. But it was interesting to watch, and it was fun. I definitely recommend checking it out just to see the craziness. Game 1 wasn't as exciting. Game 2 was nuts, though.
Yeah, that sounds pretty freaking sweet. I've been trying to keep up on as many games as I possibly can, but the 2 streams makes it kind of hard. But
very true.
Yeah, so we're gonna move over to Christian. Christian, what was your favorite match from this week?
My favorite North American match was the first match of the week, and also happened to be the match of the week, TSM versus Cloud9. Really, top tier teams in NA. Game 1 was, Nidalee, or Svenskeren on Nidalee and Bjergsen on Zoe, completely dominating. They had near perfect kill participation. Game 2, we saw Bunny Fufu being swapped out for Smoothie. Smoothie was on Bard, who's one of his best champions, and he absolutely carried the game. He made plays left and right. It was phenomenal. Game 3, they swapped back in Bunny Fufu and then put him on Bard anyway, which I don't agree with, because Bunny Fufu is not very good at Bard or really range supports for that matter. I think that's where Smoothie excels. So I don't really agree with that, but nevertheless, it was an incredible series all around, and I'm really glad I got to watch the entire thing.
Yeah, that was a pretty good one. I think I talked about my Apex versus P1.
Yes,
I like that a lot. Mostly because I'm a huge X Special fan, so last year I was all about Team Liquid, and the year before that I was all about TSM, because I follow X Special down the list, wherever he goes, and
you just follow him.
Yeah. So I really liked watching Apex this week. Apex did a pretty good job. They were a little fumbly in a couple of their games, But for the most part, they played fairly well. Like, they were picking up a lot of neutral objectives. They were playing around that stuff. But, you know, there was one game where P1 just got so far ahead that Apex just couldn't get back. And it was like, guys, what are you doing? You guys are losing to Phoenix 1. Come on, please. Don't do this to me. So with that, we're gonna move on to EU. So in our standings for EU, we have G2 sitting in first place with a record of 4-2-0. You have Fnatic sitting in second with 4-1-1. H2K sitting in third with 3-3-0, and Splice and Shulka tied for fourth place with 2-2-2. Owen, why don't you go and tell us about your favorite series from this week?
I really enjoyed H2K versus G2 because this proves, again, that the EU LCS is volatile and inconsistent. First place versus third place, you know, you think maybe some close games, maybe first place just beats third place. Who knows, maybe third place counters first place due to whatever reason and they take it. But no, that's not what happened. H2K completely destroyed G2. And then, in a shocking turn of events, G2 completely destroyed H2K. What? Are these teams making decisions with a magic 8-ball? Are their players just sitting there and the coach like, should we pick Aurelia? Shake the magic 8-ball? Maybe. Like, I don't understand what is going on. Like, how can two teams so close in the standings just flip-flop between these crazy blowout defeats?
Yeah, I mean, I watched that one too, and I have some notes on it here. Like, the G2 victory was kind of odd because they didn't ban out Aurelia, and then Otoamne, like, picks Rumble in, like, rotation 2 after they see...
Rumble is definitely a highly contested pick.
Yeah,
I don't know where you are. I just took a time machine here from Season 3.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, man. It was like they saw Karma, they saw Fizz and Rek'Sai, and after Sivir Braum, they pick Rumble Olaf.
Yeah,
so,
that was...
I agree with the Sivir pick. I totally agree with picking away Sivir from the Sivir Karma matchup. Like, the Sivir Karma comp. That's totally okay. But, like, Rumble, like, he is okay in certain situations, but, like, watching the match, like, H2K never got in a position where they could capitalize 100% off of Rumble ulti. Like, Rumble ult was always in, like, the middle of the lane, or, like, across, or like in like the center of the river, but like never in like a choke point, never in like the small area between Baron and red buff, or Dragon and red buff, or like the small entryway onto blue buff. Like, they never got that. They never got to fully capitalize off of it. And I think that's one of the big things to take away from that game. And also, like, G2 got like 25 or like 30 kills in like a 20-minute game. Like, that was bonkers.
It was an absolute bloodbath, death ball. Like,
yeah,
it's nuts.
So, with that, we're gonna go over to Christian. Christian, what was your favorite game from EU this week?
I didn't want to take Europe's match of the week, which was H2K versus G2, so I picked Fnatic versus Schalke. It was a really good series. You know, Schalke is they're pretty underrated, actually. I mean, they're sitting just in fourth place right now. The whole team works really well. Game 1, despite being down in kills, Fnatic was ahead the entire time. So, because that's kind of their play, is make the early plays and stay ahead, very similar to H2K, you know, when they don't get completely bodied by G2. But Game 2 was really interesting because Fnatic got ahead early, as their comp allowed them to do, and then there was a 20-minute pause, and after the pause, Fnatic looked, you know, like a dog chasing cars. Like, they were all over the place. It allowed Schalke's late game scaling team comp to get back into the game. And then, fortunately, Fnatic did, you know, they recollected themselves and they excelled in one late game crucial team fight, got them an ace, and then they did eventually push for the win. But that was a really exciting game, too. You know, both teams back and forth showing good play. So that's why I was a big fan of that series.
I actually really like that series too. That was another one I took notes on. That's actually completely, that's actually pretty
what are the odds?
Coincidental, right? So this one, game two is my least favorite one because Schalke had so many opportunities to win. They're like,
yes.
Sweet man, let's go get Elder Drake. You know, it's totally gonna be easy. Like a couple of their members are down. It's gonna be easy. We have so much stuff. I think they had
stolen.
Yeah, and stolen. I think they had Infernal Drink, and they might have had a Mountain Drink at the time. And then in comes Smite Steel, and you're just like, guys, what are you doing? And they're just like, okay, no, it's fine. We're gonna get Baron. And we're like, okay, Shulka, that's okay. And stolen by a Victor Laser. Laser was stolen.
The Baron was stolen by Spirit. The Elder was stolen by.
Oh, did I get that?
Febivin's Laser. Yeah, I do remember that specifically.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just like, what is?
But still, though, 2 steals, like, come on.
Yeah, man.
NA Smite.
Yeah.
Smite Vicious.
What are you doing here, Saint Vicious? Get out of here.
All right.
You're supposed to be coaching for Apex, not playing in Europe. What the hell? But yeah, I really like this series too. I think I can't remember. I think it was in the G2. Yeah, that was the G2 game that they kept banning Draven. But
why not?
There was the Jhin Thresh lane I thought was pretty sweet, even though they never actually did a laning phase.
Who needs a laning phase?
Yeah. We just lane swap and then we do whatever the hell we want. What's laning phase? We don't do that. That's only stuff stupid silver scrubs do. What? All right, we're gonna move on to our next segment. This is segment number 3. This is going to be what I like to call spicy meatballs. We're gonna talk about our favorite picks from this week, whatever like super weird or off meta, or maybe we're moving into this meta and this was a brand new pick, but otherwise it was a spicy meatball to put some flavor onto our LCS. So we're going to talk about our favorite picks of the week. So go ahead, Owen, and tell me about your favorite spicy meatball.
I really enjoyed Hakuho's support Trundle. Now, in the context of that game, the pick made absolutely no sense, and their team comp was horrible. However, nobody picks support Trundle in NA, and I've seen it in Korea for about like a year or two now. They've been kind of playing it. It used to be like a pocket thing, but it's getting more popular. It's really awesome. The Ice Wall, like, displaces people. It cancels channeling abilities. It can do this whole ton of disruption on one ability that you get at level 1, and it's awesome. You can ult a tank and just steal all of its tank stats, and then you melt the tank, and then your support is suddenly, you know, this huge beefy frontliner. He can steal AD. He did a solo 1v2 invade on the red buff and stole it. It was just the dopest thing I've ever seen from a support player. He's just like, yeah, you know, I'm a support technically, but I'm just going to pretend that I'm like this fed carry top laner. Now they lost, but that's not important. What's important is his support Trundle was incredible.
Yeah, I agree. I personally, if I saw Nami, I wouldn't pick Trundle into it. But, you know,
I mean,
you know.
Same
Bad
here,
idea.
but
Yeah, what are you going to do?
It almost worked. It was so close.
Yeah, but yeah, Trundle's pretty sweet. It's like if you don't have room for him, I kind of like Trundle now more than ever, just because he's become that flex pick. Like you can either put him top or bot, and you can kind of bait people into picking like Gnar or something to counter the Trundle, and then be like, oh, whoops, he's support.
Yeah.
Christian, why don't you go ahead and tell me about your favorite pick from this week?
I mean, it wasn't super off meta, but New Shen is finally seeing competitive play. He was picked up in Europe by Gamsu, which, you know, it's the perfect champ for Fnatic. They're all about the communication and, you know, the cross-map teleport plays, so it's kind of a no-brainer. And then Lorlo over on Team Liquid actually picked him up, and it fit their comp really well. Granted, he did play it against Phoenix One, who admittedly aren't very good, but they executed a lot of really good early dives with Dardoch on Olaf. It was just, you know, it's the perfect, you know, Shen ults the Olaf puts the ult on the Ragnarok and just goes in, and really clean. Just, I really like the pick. I expect us to see more of it as we go on, especially because he's really good with the Rift Herald buff as well, being that split push threat who constantly has cross map pressure as long as his ult is up. That's a major threat.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Shen is a little back and forth. I don't know if, like, especially like his dueling power, especially against like Irelia, is a little shaky.
Yeah.
But like, I think that the more and more that we start to see more team, like more emphasis on teleport, then we're definitely going to see a lot more Shen. I think what's also good with him is that since he has the ultimate, like there is the option that you don't need to take teleport. Like there's also the option of like taking ignite or taking exhaust or taking something else. Yeah, I can actually take a kill lane with Shen, even though that's an awful idea. I think my spicy meatball of the week used to be not a spicy meatball, but now it kind of is, I guess. But like Morgana got picked for that one time, like the first time in like the new split, and I'm still loving Morgana. Like Morgana is still super great because like a lot of the supports that people bring are very high CC. We got picks of Thresh, we got picks of Nami, Bard, Karma. Like being able to counter pick Karma with these Karma Sivir and like comps with Morgana means that while your team is running away, Morgana's running this way, and they're running right into Morgana. Sure, they might have a little bit more movement speed to get out, but if Morgana has gotten like say a Riley's Crystal Scepter or even like a Azania's Hourglass, she now runs in, presses that ultimate, and now your entire team is caught into it because they were trying to group up for that Sivir ulti and the Karma ulti. But yeah, so we're gonna move with that. I mean, we're gonna move on to our next segment, and we're gonna talk about our biggest disappointments. We're gonna talk this segment. We like to talk about a game that let us down, or maybe a series that didn't go so well, or a pick that someone thought was gonna be good but then didn't turn out to be good, and then everyone's raging. So we're gonna baby rage for just a little bit. Chat spam baby rage 1 2 3 or something. I don't know. Owen, why don't you talk about your biggest disappointment from this week?
Okay, I'm gonna preface this by saying that I'm a Cloud9 fan. So before everyone burns me at the stake, I'm still a Cloud9 fan. But game 1 of Cloud9 versus CLG, Cloud9's macro game was absolutely terrible. They warded poorly, they rotated incorrectly, they committed really hard on kills that they never found, lost a bunch of objectives, and then once they fell behind, they basically played dead for 30 minutes. And I know that we've all been in this game in solo queue where like every time you try to take an objective or take a fight, you're just losing it. So you just fall back into this like, let's just farm, we have the late game. No, you do not have the late game. You cannot do that. Like you might as well just open mid if you're gonna stop contesting things, because you're going to eventually lose. It's just the difference between losing at 25 minutes and losing at 30 minutes at that point really doesn't matter because you're still losing. And they weren't warding well. There was something wrong with the team's coordination. They didn't make good calls. They weren't winning even individual fights most of the time, and they just slowly got grinded out by CLG. And it was very unfortunate because C9 looked so dominant in the previous weeks, and they were doing really great. And then how did you mess this up?
Yeah, I can totally agree with that. Like you can't just farm the lanes anymore, especially in this meta. Like you can't farm the lanes and just say, "Oh, we have the late game, it's fine," because the late game is in the neutral objectives. If you're losing Baron, if you're losing dragons, you're losing these steadily increasing buffs that are going to stack in the late game and then ultimately get even better with the Elder Drake. So if you're giving up Infernal Drakes, if you're giving up Ocean Drakes, if you're giving up Mountain Drakes, even giving up Cloud Drakes, like giving up this stuff, like can just very easily just stack and stack and stack that you can have a gold advantage, but your opponent can have an even more gold advantage because they have these stats that they didn't have to pay money for. These increased ability power, increased damage to neutral objectives. Like you have to contest these. If you're just going to give them up, then you might as well just say, "Oh well, you guys win, concede FF at 20." Like, yeah, I totally get that.
Yeah.
Christian, why don't you go ahead and tell me about your biggest disappointment from this week?
Piggybacking more on Owen's point about C9, and I actually mentioned it before, but Bunny Fufu is not doing so hot with C9. You might say that C9 is going more smoothie with Smoothie. Don't hate me for that one. But yeah, Bunny Fufu, he went 0-3 this weekend versus Smoothie, who went 3-0 this weekend. Clearly, Bunny Fufu is not performing on champions that aren't Thresh, and which is unfortunate because this is a ranged meta, and supports like Nami and Karma and Bard can really easily punish Thresh. So I definitely think if C9 wants to, finish in that top 2, top 3, they're gonna need to put in Smoothie just more often. He's clearly working out better.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Like, I remember when Bunny Fufu first came out, and a lot of people were hyping him up, like, oh yeah, look how sweet Bunny Fufu is, and he'd like hook someone over like bot lane wall, like in their tri-brush, and then throw the lantern back and pull his entire, like, he'd flash forward or something, like carry them, like all this, like this mad Thresh play. It's like, yeah, that's sweet. And then we saw him play in the LCS, like, you know, he got a little bit of experience, and, you know, he was okay, he wasn't awful, and now we get to this, and, you know, it's starting to turn out like a Remilia issue where, you know, we banned Thresh, and then suddenly it was like, oh, like the sponge gar, like, ah. Like when, that face when you're really good at Thresh, and then Thresh is banned away from you. Ooh. Like,
yeah, it's unfortunate.
But yeah, I totally agree with you. For our next segment, we are going to go on to predictions, and we're going to talk about games coming up this week, what games you should watch, and how the outcomes are going to turn out. So, Owen, why don't you go ahead and tell us what is your prediction for the future? Give us a little look into your crystal ball.
My crystal ball is pretty cloudy and broken, probably, because last week I predicted NVUS would beat Immortals, and I was wrong. I was dead wrong. They got destroyed. However, LOD still won.
How dare you?
I don't know how they lost. Like, LOD did so well. He had crazy KDAs, and then they still managed to lose. And I was at least right about them 2-0ing Echo Fox, but then again, that wasn't really the craziest prediction. I'll try to redeem myself this week by making the safest prediction ever and saying Immortals is probably going to 2-0 CLG and 2-1 Team Liquid. It's just fate, I think. It's just the way that Immortals deals with weaker teams.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think those are fairly safe. I don't know. I'm having a good feeling about Liquid. I don't know why.
Yeah, they might pull something.
Yeah, I don't know.
Man,
Immortals
Fabby,
is on a
dude.
downswing.
Fabby's gonna just pop off.
They
like
won't
so
put
cute.
Fabby.
Yeah, they're not gonna play Fabby again.
No way.
Yeah, because Fabby was like, yeah, I was like, hey, can I just play like one game against like the easy team, and then like I'll go back to TLA. And then, because like I just want some experience on the stage, and then they asked him later, like, "Oh, hey, what happened in game 2?" He's like, "Oh, I choked." Like, yeah, that happens.
Can't do that.
It's okay, buddy. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
It's unfortunate because I always talk about, like, you know, it's really unfortunate that NA doesn't develop their own talent and they just like buy players from other regions.
Yeah.
This is why. Because for some reason, NA players cannot transition from solo queue to LCS. It's been a consistent problem. We've seen so many players just not make it.
Yeah, and I think that's a big issue that we have kind of in NA. Like, we kind of undervalue a lot of the stuff that happens in solo queue, because a lot of people that play in solo queue like don't take it like super seriously. Like, you talk to a lot of people, like I talk to a lot of people like, oh yeah, I'm Diamond 1, Diamond 2. Granted, that's not the top echelon of playing, and like most of the time they're just like, oh, it's just a game, you know, whatever. And you know, if that's like clear across the board, like even like the master and like challenger tier, like we can't have that sort of mentality at that level. Like, you have people who are like, you're like, I only play this one champion and that's it. Like, you can't like stop. Like, yeah. And then we have people like Wild Turtle who need to fill up the challenger tier with like 12 accounts, and he's just like, I'm the best.
Challenger gets banned for boosting.
Yeah, oops.
I played in Master Tier for a while last year, and it's very true that NA does not. It is a clown fiesta. They do not take it seriously. I mean, between the Smurfs, the boosters, the scripting isn't as bad as it used to be. Like, Season 4 was pretty bad, but it's just people have this attitude about, like, it's a very self-centered, like, I'm gonna try and carry this game, and no one else matters, and it's extremely toxic. Even just the passive-aggressive stuff where it's like, oh, why'd you do that? Like, you don't want an answer, you're just trying to be rude.
Right.
And again, I don't know if that happens in Korean solo queue, because when I watch Korean streams, I can't read chat. But I'm assuming they're raging at each other. I don't know.
Yeah. So before we derail too hard, maybe we can get into this topic a little bit later. We're gonna go back to Christian and get back to the topic at hand. We're gonna make Christian, why don't you talk about your prediction for the next week?
All right. Well, for the matches that, you know, I guess they're most important. We have Cloud9 versus Envy, you know, fighting for that 3rd place spot. I'm gonna say 2-1 for Envy. I think they're gonna put up really big. Seraph and Ninja and Lot especially have been all playing ridiculously well. And then for not much farther down, we have Team Liquid versus your favorite Xpecial with Apex, fighting for 5th place. I think Team Liquid's gonna 2-1 that. That's just me. Over in Europe, I looked at the schedule. It's a super average week. There's no like crazy matches. No one's fighting for any spots. But we do have G2 versus Schalke and Splice versus H2K, and I'm gonna give both of those 1-1s. Honestly, I think that Splice can put up against H2K and Schalke can put up against G2. We've seen that both G2 and H2K can play either really well or terribly, so I'm expecting 2-1-1s there.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I can totally agree with that.
Yeah, those are reasonable.
I've been pretty impressed by Schalke. Like Schalke's been playing pretty well. I will sort of agree with you about Apex. I think Apex is really good. They play pretty solid. I think the only issue is that Ray just can't play the meta. Like the meta in the sense that like he can play Aurelia and he can play that assassin Jarvan super well, but like last week he was playing against Trundle and he picks geez, what did he pick? He picked something and I can't remember what it was. I have to look at my notes real quick. He picked against Trundle Aurelia in game. Oh no, he picked Fiora against Trundle in game 3. That doesn't work. And I'm like, dude, Gnar is unbanned. Gnar is very good against Trundle. And Gnar still kind of fits the kind of bruiser-y assassin. He's kind of like a halfway point between like a bruiser and a tank. Even though that's weird to say, right? But like, I feel like there are places where Ray just doesn't play a tank. He just wants to play like the thing that does as much damage as possible. And Apex builds around that. That's not necessarily like, you know, a weak point. I don't want to say a weak point, but I don't want to say it's particularly bad that they're doing it because their team certainly builds around Ray in that sense. But if Ray is unwilling to play like champions like Gnar into favorable matchups, then there's going to be some issues. I wasn't 100% convinced by the Fiora pick. Like, he was doing tons of damage. Don't get me wrong. Like, he was diving into a fight and 1v3ing people, and he still came out, like, nearly killing all 3 of them and getting a 1-for-1. Like, he was definitely dealing the damage, but, like, if that had been Gnar, he would have just shat on Trundle just all day. Because I don't think they lane swapped that game. Yeah. Oh, no, they did. Yeah, they definitely did. Yeah, 100%. They did. But it still doesn't change the fact that, like, Ray likes killing people. Zig picks Trundle. Gnar kills Trundle. Why doesn't Ray pick Gnar? I don't know.
Yeah. I kind of understand where you're coming from, but at the same time, maybe if Fiora is going into a 3v1 and coming out with kills, the problem might be in the rest of the team. Like, if you've got a player that can do that, putting them on a tank might be wasting their potential. Like, anyone can go pick Maokai and go even, but not everyone can pick Fiora and go off. Again, specific to the game and the match and the teams, but...
Right, yeah. So, with that, we're going to move on to our final segment, which is going to keep flopping around, by the way. I don't think I'm going to have the same segment 6 every week. So last week we talked about we had the segment called "Son, We Need to Talk," and this segment this segment 6 is patching you up, and we're going to left click as Mercy as we talk about the new 6.12 patch. I did discuss some of the changes earlier. Some of the big in-game stuff is just some little additions to flat AD on some big AD items. So with that, how is this going to change the meta? We do see a couple champion buffs and nerfs. Maybe I'll finally see Xin Zhao again. My season 3 Alex is like, oh yeah, totally, dude. Let's do it. He got AP scaling on his heal. He's got AP scaling on his shield. Trinity Force now builds out a stinger, and he's got more health and health per level. We're doing it. Xin Zhao's coming back, baby. Maybe if we could hope.
98 more health at level 18. I don't think that's.
It's a lot.
Come on. Don't crush my dreams now, Owen.
Like,
Just go ahead and talk about what you think the
150
changes are going to
sets.
bring with the new patch.
Okay, so none of the changes were super drastic.
Right.
They were kind of just little taps in the right direction, and I like this from Riot because this is a lot better than the massive, like, by the way, we reworked every item patches that we've been getting, where they
Yeah.
reworked every tank item, every AP item, every AD item. It gets a bit tiresome, but it's fairly standard, fairly straightforward. They're not doing anything crazy. We saw AD item changes that won't affect other lanes, but will heavily affect AD carries, which I like. Just a couple small tweaks to stop this weirdo, like, Ghostblade, Black Cleaver, Lucian build. Apart from that, since nothing else is really changing, expect carry top laners to keep dominating the meta. Stuff like Jax and Aurelia are really coming into fashion and probably going to stay there. We've seen a bit of Olaf, expect that to continue. We've seen Vlad and Swain getting picked up a lot and people failing to counter them properly. They go insane, you can't kill them, it's a tank and it's also a carry. Ryze rework is on the horizon, ahead of the long-awaited York rework again. This is about the umpteenth Ryze rework, so don't main this guy or learn how to play him since he'll get changed anyways. Expect Riot to make him either horrible or godlike, and then rework him again in 6 months.
Pretty much.
So,
That sounds so accurate.
That's basically what's going to happen. They can't rework this champion. I don't even know. They reworked him in like Season 2, and then whatever. And Mid Aurelia is going to happen. You heard it here first. Faker will pick it soon, and then everyone else will copy him, but NA won't be able to do it.
But maybe Keen to have this mid Hecarim again. I don't know. But Christian, over to you.
Well, Infinity Edge got the 5 AD buff, Essence River got the 5 AD buff, Yumu's got the 5 AD nerf, which I think is going to bring back the crit ADCs, the Ashe, the Caitlyn. Twitch has seen a resurgence. We're definitely moving out of the Korean OP build, which on any ADC, Lucian, Jhin, Misfortune, whoever, it's just Ghostblade Cleaver. That's the Korean OP build. It's really just an early game armor pen build, but we're moving away from that direction, moving into the crit ADCs again, which I think is, a change in the right direction. Also, Hecarim jungle has been popping up a ton in solo queue, especially with the Trinity Force changes. Runic Echoes into Trinity Force is absurd. It's just so good, so I expect him to creep his way up in the win rates until he gets nerfed again.
Yeah,
So,
he's sitting at 53.53% win rate according to
That's up
champion.gg, so that's pretty good. I don't know about the whole AD thing, cuz like right now there are a lot of champions that use a Spirit Visage and heal themselves a lot, like Vlad and Swain are still super strong, like what Owen talked about. So a lot of these AD carries need to be picking up Executioner's Calling, and that Mortal Reminder isn't good unless you have some flat armor to go along with it. So I still think people are
buffed though.
Yeah.
The last Whisper item's got 10 AD. That's a long sword. That's pretty significant.
Yeah.
Wow.
Frankly.
That'll fix the problem with marksman sucking for the past 2 years.
Yeah, right. I mean,
It'll help, though.
we might see some changes, but I think the point I was trying to get at is that these last Whisper items, you don't get the full benefit out of them because they give you percent armor pen, and 5% of 0 is still 0. So they need like a first armor pen item in order to get there. So whatever they want to build out of that serrated Dirk, it's usually going to build the Yomu's Ghostblade or the the Black Cleaver. So I still think they're going to be building in somewhat that direction, but like some of like these other things involving the IE, we might see some moving towards there. But I still think like a Black Cleaver or a Yomu's Ghostblade and then like a Mortal Reminder might still be popping up.
Oh yeah, we'll definitely still see the Ghostblade into Black Cleaver on things like Lucian, on things like Sivir, and the crux of the problem is that AD carry power spikes for years have been dictated by you get your crit item, you get your attack speed crit item. That's it. You go Infinity Edge, you go PD. That's your core. Or any other of those, that family of items in general. And the problem with that is it takes so long to hit that power spike, especially in LCS games. I mean, you're lane swapping, you're tower diving, you're doing all these crazy fights and skirmishes. And let's compare like an Ashe or a Caitlyn to a Lucian. So Ashe has an Infinity Edge and a basic boot. And I think accounting for the gold difference, Lucian would have like a CDR boot and a Ghost Blade. If you get in a fight at that point, you are going to get absolutely destroyed. Because Ghost Blade gives so much more as its own item. Obviously, it doesn't scale as well as Infinity Edge does in the late game, but it doesn't matter because you start winning immediately. It's win now versus win later, and in so many cases, especially at high-level LCS play, that small advantage early will give you enough of a lead where it won't matter that you built an item that doesn't scale as well.
Yeah,
So,
I can agree with that.
the 1080 is nice, but we'll have to wait and see if a longsword is actually enough difference to matter, especially in a meta where Black Cleaver is better than Mass Whisperer or Mortal Reminder or whatever the upgraded version is.
Yeah.
Just because like it also shreds for your team. So when you've also got carry top laners, when you've got a Jax, when you've got an Aurelia, when you've got an Alawi wandering around the map, that's huge, especially in a team fight. But on someone like Lucian, where you can just apply it to the whole team with your AoE or your ult picks, it's going to be messy. We'll have to wait and see what the pros do.
Yeah, I mean, it's really just I think the big thing about ADs right now, it's just like, so we see Kate, Ashe, Ezreal, Sivir, and Lucian right now. I think that's fair to say of those 5 champions is kind of the pool right now. Sometimes we see Jhin, sometimes we see Twitch. If the once in a blue moon we'll see Urgot, you know, like I think most of these champions are going to be doing that build anyway, right? And it is really just choosing between, okay, do we want utility out of our AD carry, or do we want, you know, high amounts of damage? Because if we do want the high amounts of damage, we're gonna go excuse me, Lucian, and we're gonna just go Youmuu's Black Cleaver, and we're just going to destroy them, right? But you know, in the instance you brought up, like if you get into a fight with like Lucian against Ashe, and Ashe has an IE, Ashe isn't going to be doing, you know, half as much damage as Lucian is, but that arrow is still very good, right? Well, you're not gonna. I'm still of the opinion that you're not picking Ashe for her damage, because if you're picking a carry for her damage, the first carry that comes to my mind is definitely not Ashe. Like it's definitely probably Jhin or Lucian. Right, you're picking Ashe because of that arrow, and that arrow is very good with like Gnar, with Zyra, with a lot of picks that are happening right now.
Yeah, I agree. But at the end of the day, damage still matters. But I agree that
Death is the best CC. You can't even move. It even changes the color of your screen. How broken is that?
I just can't do that. I'd like to see Corki make a comeback, but the changes probably aren't going to be that huge for bot lane Corki. Mid lane Corki, however, might really enjoy them. Because the lower cooldown on W means you don't just get run down and killed.
Yeah, but I think the big problem is the change to Trinity Force. Like, Trinity Force was one of the big items for Corki because it had the Sheen, but now that it builds out a Stinger instead of Sheen, like that Q auto or the ulti auto is going to be pretty ridiculous.
Yeah. I agree.
So, Christian, do you have anything to add? Would you like to?
No, I think you guys covered it all.
Yeah.
Cool.
With that, I think we're going to close it out. I'm Alex Shinkari Erdenberg. This is Owen. I gotta point the right direction. Oh, hold on. Okay, yeah. Okay, there we go. Yes, this is Owen, and this is Christian right here. And with that, I would like to thank our everyone at EGF as well as my guests for today.
Thank you.
And all the people who are viewing us currently on Twitch or later on YouTube. YouTube. And make sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, as well as Twitch. Click that little heart button. We'll heart you back. I think we'll send you like a tweet and it'll say less than 3 on it. It'll be cute. So from all of us here, thanks for joining us. I will be back next Monday at 9:30. Hopefully I'll have, you know, an actual picture of Owen and not just a Pikachu wearing goggles. I believe LCS starts as per usual on Wednesday around noonish Eastern Standard Time for EU, and then later on late Friday, like 7 o'clock Eastern for NA, and then it continues till Sunday. So thanks for watching. Make sure to tune in some LCS so you can join in on the conversation. Maybe we'll talk with Twitch at one point. But thanks for joining. Thanks for watching, and we're out of here. Catch you guys later.